Hello everyone! I must say its paintwork is not at all durable. Even relatively new cars can be full of chips and scuffs. Therefore, many owners pour liquid glass or hot wax on the car immediately after purchase to avoid problems with premature aging of the body. But iron itself perfectly resists corrosion. Most well-groomed specimens, even at a decent age, still flaunt their native paint. What cannot be said about the decorative chrome parts of the body, which become cloudy and covered with dark spots. However, this is the misfortune of all foreign cars operating in our conditions. The windshield was not strong enough. It quickly acquires chips and scratches from brushes. The part is expensive, however, like all original spare parts for the Lexus. Therefore, we recommend choosing a non-original one. It is in no way inferior to the native frontal, but it is several times cheaper and lasts much longer. After 200 to 250,000 kilometers, they usually become unusable. In short, the wiper rods simply fall apart. They say they can't be restored, but how long they will last after that is unknown. Therefore, the trapezoid assembly is often changed. At the same time, check the performance of the windshield washer motor. By this run, for 200,000 kilometers, he usually dies. However, do not immediately buy a new part. The electronics of the LX are reliable, and the vagaries of the equipment are mainly associated with corrosion of the terminals, connectors and wires. Therefore, it is often enough to strip the contacts or replace the wiring. Sometimes, the mechanism for folding mirrors fails. Most often this happens in cold weather after washing. Blowing with compressed air or treating the internal elements of mirrors with a special liquid such as WD-40 can prevent breakage. But the mirror canvas itself, amalgama, cannot be saved with improvised means. It bursts on its own due to temperature changes or internal stresses. Many complaints about the weak headlight. The optics are actually pale and do not provide decent lighting. After all, xenon headlights, which, like air, are necessary for such a status SUV as Lexus, acquired only after 2015. In addition, on the American versions of the car, it is quite often necessary to change the head optics lamps. Due to the specifics of the design, they burn half-heartedly and eventually become covered with a black coating, although the replacement is by no means ruinous. Salon equipment is reliable. With age, perhaps, the heater fan burns out or the stove itself fails. True, this happens on the very solid runs, and repairs are not particularly expensive. The control unit for windows and mirrors, the multimedia system and climate control may fail, seat heating fails. Although the methods for solving these problems have long been tested by our private repairmen servicing Toyota and Lexus car. Surprisingly, some owners are not satisfied with standard soundproofing. However, this problem is easily solved. The only question is the amount of money that the newer-ish owner is willing to spend on this procedure. But there are almost no questions to the engine. The petrol 5.7-liter V8 has practically no weak points. True, some owners complain about burning exhaust manifolds and prematurely wearing out timing chain tensioners. But when they start to figure out the timing of their replacements, it turns out that these parts have served not 150 to 200,000 kilometers, but decently for 300,000 kilometers for the second owners of numbers. For example, the author of these lines had a chance to see many copies with real mileage of more than 500,000 kilometers on the odometer. But the pump rarely withstands more than 250,000. It even happens that it is changed at an earlier run. For an SUV, a water pump is considered a consumable item. Approximately the same amount was released to the catalysts. There are 3 of them on the motor. When the corresponding error lights up on the instrument panel, many users simply remove them, leaving flame arresters filled with the metal shavings in their place. For normal operation of the engine, intervention in the electrics of the car is also necessary so that the V8, devoid of converters, works as it should. Summing up the intermediate result, we can state that the Lexus 8 3UR-FE is obscenely reliable and durable. True, this is achieved by high-quality service and timely replacement of consumables. But saving on fuel is unlikely to work. In the city, the Japanese Mastodon eats 20 to 25 liters, albeit 90-second gasoline, and on the highway you can meet 20 to 15. Therefore, almost half of the owners install gas equipment of the 4th or 5th generation of the SUV. Moreover, there will be no problems with the installation. In Russia, there are many large and small private companies specializing in the conversion of the Lexus LX power system to compressed gas. The reason for such an enviable longevity is the relative simplicity of the V8 design. The engine does quite well without any turbocharging and drive superchargers. However, the heads and engine blocks are completely cast from aluminum alloy, with a 32-valve timing mechanism and variable valve timing on the intake and exhaust. In addition, it is equipped with direct fuel injection and lightweight magnesium pistons. Due to the relatively low compression ratio, 10.2, the edge willingly and without harmful consequence consumes the 90-second gasoline. The 4.5-liter turbo diesel that appeared during the last restyling of 2015 is also not a bad idea. At least for all 4 full years of existence of this version, there are no complaints about him yet. Yes, this is not surprising. The first problems with the Diesel 8 usually begins only after 350 to 400,000 kilometers, or even later. The statistics are from the Toyota Land Cruiser 200 platform, on which this unit has been installed since the model was released back in 2007. On which this unit has been installed since the model was released back in 2007. The main enemy of the turbo diesel is a low-quality solarium. The main enemy of a turbo diesel is a low-quality solarium, which primarily affects the fuel pump, injection nozzles and turbocharger. Moreover, on a used LX 450, the engine can be in excellent condition even on a copy with high mileage. Although often a fairly fresh SUV can seen with problems of the power unit. It all depends on how the first owner looked after the car, how often he changed the oil, whether he saved on maintenance and high-quality fuel, whether he drove it in the tail and man through cities and town. Therefore, only complete engine diagnostics will save you from buying a peek in the poke. And don't keep on checking. Otherwise, all the costs of repairing or even replacing the motor will fall entirely on your shoulders. All this is true for the automatic 6-speed transmission. The unit is time-tested and very reliable, and although it was originally declared as maintenance-free, that is, the oil is filled for the entire life of the machine, but our dealers strongly recommend changing it every 60,000 kilometers on average. This key rule will help delay the overhaul of the unit up to 450,000 kilometers and even more. At the same time, there are practically no chronic source in the Asian AB60F automatic transmission, and those that were successfully eliminated over the long years of production of the model. Although occasionally it also happens when the box periodically moves and is naughty, stumbles and twitches when changing gears. Usually it is enough to call in the service to change the oil and reset the accumulators. But sometimes you have to spend money on repairs. The torque converter, the valve block may fail, the clutch pack will wear out ahead of time, or the control electronics will be depressed. Although it often happens that the box breaks due to improper operation, for example, with sudden starts and braking, especially on the cold one, when the automatic transmission has not yet warmed up. Therefore, here one cannot do without a thorough diagnosis. The technical condition of a used Lexus LX must be carefully checked before buying. At the same time, it is worth making sure that the all-wheel drive transmission is in a good condition. By the way, the SUV is equipped with a permanent all-wheel drive system with a reduction range of gears and a torsion center differential with the possibility of the hard center lock. Under normal conditions, it sends 60% of track to the rear wheels and the remaining 40% to the front. Moreover, in the process of movement, the ratio can change up to 30 to 70 in favor of any of the axes. Rigid mechanical locks between the wheels are not provided. They are imitated by electronics that slow down the slipping wheels. The system that transmits torque to both axles is very reliable. But after forays into serious off-road, it is better not to be too lazy and wash the transmission elements and, if possible, clean the empties of the CV joints and the gearbox and gearbox oil seals from dirt. This will significantly extend the life of these units. And do not forget to change the oil every 40 to 60,000 kilometers in the transfer case, rear axle and gearbox. It is also advisable to lubricate the propeller's shaft crosses. However, they are quite durable as well. The first replacement will only come closer to 250,000 kilometers. At the same time, the outboard bearing usually also becomes unusable, although it is often able to hold out for much longer. The suspension is also distinguished by longevity, especially its mechanical part. The trouble is that all Lexuses are equipped with a rather complicated and costly pneumatic hydraulic suspension, although she begins to show this satisfaction somewhere after 220 to 250,000 kilometers. Besides, on the latest versions of the SUV, her resource has become even higher. In the chassis of the LX, 4 hydraulic accumulators, hydrospheres, are paired with shock absorbers. When the hydrosphere loses its tightness, the car starts bouncing like a ball on the bumps. Sometimes the valve plug that connects the shock absorber and the hydrosphere fails, and they change only in a pass on the front or rear axle. If the car sits on the front or rear wheels, then it's time to update the body height sensors. There are 3 of them on the car, 2 in the front and 1 in the back. What is surprising, they die almost simultaneously. So, if the master sentenced one, then surely the other 2 will soon join him. Therefore, it is better to change all 3 at once. But they change only after 200,000 kilometers. At this point, the front shock absorbers begin to sweat. If the leaks are not strong, then in this state you can still drive 50,000. But when the leak becomes noticeable, it is better to change the shock absorbers. Otherwise, the hydrosphere will become empty and become unusable. The rear shock absorbers regularly serve 250,000 kilometers and can easily last 300,000 kilometers. For the correct and long-term operation of this entire bundle, the accumulator and shock absorbers, the hydraulic fluid should be changed every 100,000. Among the traditional elements of the chassis, wheel bearing can be distinguished, which begin to bust closer to 150 to 220,000 kilometers. Racks and stabilizer bushings live about the same. The list of the most popular suspension parts can also include a set of front levers, which usually require replacement at 150 to 200,000 kilometers. As a rule, the steering rack also lives up to this period. It starts knocking at around of under 200,000 kilometers, otherwise you will have to buy a new part. But something needs to be done with the brakes. I must admit, I have not heard so many complaints about this mechanism for a long time. Literally every LX owner is not satisfied with regular brake units. The Japanese strengthened them with each restyling, but they still cannot be called effective enough. However, there are a lot of recommendations on the internet to increase their performance. For example, some users advise bringing the bumps of the crankcase purge system into the engine compartment. Thereby, instead of standard brake discs, install DBA pancakes and hook pads, as well as reinforced Goodrich brake hoses. This will increase braking efficiency by 30%. You can also replace the anti-roll bars with CarTech, which will really reduce roll in corners. As you can see, Lexus LX can rightly be called one of the most reliable cars in the world. 2. It is almost impossible to buy a technically well-groomed copy with real mileage and without legal problems at a normal price. If, nevertheless, you're lucky, you must remember that you should have about a quarter of the amount paid for the car left in case of unforeseen breakdowns and replacements. Indeed, despite the unsurpassed reliability, the SUV is structurally very complex and up to its ears heaped up with electronics, and they sell it mainly after they squeeze all the juice out of it and correct the odometer readings. First of all, after the purchase, install a good anti-theft system, and preferably two. The car is held in high esteem by car thieves. If you have or had such a model, share information about what and how it breaks in the comments.